You've been doing crunches. You've been chasing a flat stomach like it owes you money. And belly fat? Still there, clinging on like it pays rent and refuses to leave even after the lease ended. Here's the twist. The fat you're mad at isn't even the one your doctor worries about most. There are two types of belly fat. One is annoying, one is actually dangerous. And you've been fighting both of them with the same tool, crunches, which is a bit like using a fly swatter to fight a bear. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand what belly fat actually is and exactly how to beat it. Here's the first thing almost nobody tells you. There are two types of belly fat. Type 1 is mostly a cosmetic frustration. The subcutaneous fat, right under your skin. The stuff you can pinch. Annoying, visible, mildly offensive in good lighting, but relatively harmless. It just sits there being squishy and unwanted. Type 2 is linked to your long-term health. The visceral fat. This is the one you can't see, but your body definitely knows it's there. It wraps around your organs, your liver, your stomach, your pancreas, and unlike its lazy subcutaneous cousin, it's actually active. It sends inflammatory signals into your bloodstream. Higher amounts of visceral fat are associated with an increased risk of conditions like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and fatty liver disease. So here's the punchline. The fat you're self-conscious about in the mirror probably isn't the one your doctor worries about most. The dangerous one is invisible, and crunches don't touch either of them. Now let's make this personal, because this is where it gets specific to you. Before menopause, estrogen is quietly doing you a favor. It directs fat toward your hips and thighs instead of your belly. That's the safer, subcutaneous kind. It's not random that women tend to store fat there. It's literally a hormonal real estate policy. But when estrogen declines, specifically through the menopausal transition, that policy gets revoked. Fat starts relocating from hips and thighs toward the belly, sometimes despite eating the same foods and exercising the same way. Same body, new landlord, worse tenant. Now add another piece of the puzzle. Lower estrogen is linked to higher cortisol. Chronically elevated cortisol is associated with greater visceral fat accumulation. And cortisol actively encourages fat to move exactly where you don't want it, your midsection. Declining estrogen plus rising cortisol is basically your hormones conspiring behind your back. Now here's the science almost every belly fat video skips. Not all fat cells behave the same. Imagine every fat cell as a tiny storage locker. Some lockers swing open the moment your body asks for energy, others practically bolt themselves shut. Why? Because fat cells contain different receptors. Some receptors encourage fat to be released. Others make those cells much more resistant. Areas like the lower belly often contain more of the receptors that resist fat release. They also tend to have lower blood flow. The chemical signals that tell fat cells to release stored energy don't reach those areas as efficiently. So when you're losing fat, your body isn't picking on your stomach. It's following biology. Some storage lockers simply open sooner than others. Suddenly your arms look leaner, your face gets slimmer, your clothes fit differently, and your belly seems like it completely ignored the memo. It didn't. It just has a different set of rules. Now this part becomes obvious. So you do 1,000 crunches. You feel the burn. You think, this is working. Not exactly. That burn is muscle fatigue, not fat melting. Crunches build the muscle underneath the fat. They don't reach into the fat and evict it. You can't choose where fat leaves first. That's called spot reduction. And despite decades of marketing, it's still a myth. Your genetics already RSVP'd to that decision without asking you. Crunches can absolutely build stronger abs, but those abs only become visible as overall body fat decreases. They're building the stage, not raising the curtain. So what actually works? Good news first. Visceral fat, the dangerous, invisible kind, is actually easier to lose than the fat you can pinch because it's more metabolically active. It responds faster to diet and exercise. A 2024 study found that a solid block of consistent cardio-reduced visceral fat, over 14%, even with almost no change on the scale, which means the number on your scale might be lying to you about how much progress you're actually making. Rude, but useful to know. Eat the rainbow. Studies show that carotenoid-rich foods, colorful vegetables like carrots, tomatoes, spinach, bell peppers, and squash, significantly reduce visceral fat. 8 weeks of eating carotenoid-rich vegetables reduced visceral fat in a randomized controlled trial. Green tea. Catechins in green tea reduce visceral fat. A 12-week trial found that 600 milligrams of catechins per day, about 2 to 3 cups of matcha or sencha, significantly reduced visceral fat. Resistance training still matters here too, not because it burns the fat directly, but because it protects the muscle underneath while you're losing it. So there's something worth revealing once the fat clears out. And remember episode 2, mechanical tension is still the growth signal. It doesn't stop applying just because this episode is about fat. And the one nobody wants to hear, stress management isn't optional. High cortisol drives fat straight to your midsection. You cannot out-exercise a nervous system that's permanently switched to panic mode. This is also where sleep comes back in. Remember episode 2's cortisol spike from one bad night? Same mechanism, different target. A stressed, sleep-deprived body isn't just bad for muscle recovery. It's actively voting for more visceral fat, not less. And if you've been white-knuckling your tracking since episode 3, good. Keep going, but don't let the deficit get so aggressive that it becomes its own stressor. A brutal restriction is still a stressor to your nervous system. And stress is exactly the thing that's been working against you this whole episode. None of these tell your body exactly where to burn fat, but together, they create the conditions that allow your body to gradually release stored fat, including the stubborn areas that take the longest. Consistency wins. Here's what I want you to remember. Belly fat isn't just stubborn. It's different because your biology is more complicated than a 30 seconds fitness reel. For a lot of women, it's biologically newer territory. A landing zone your hormones started assigning fat to later in life, not the place it was always meant to live. That's not permission to give up. It's permission to stop blaming yourself for something that was never a discipline problem to begin with. And that's what Pink Decoded is all about. Not fighting your body, understanding it. Stay pink, stay decoded, and maybe skip the 100 crunches. Your back will appreciate it.